Thanks for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I want to tell you about my new Ableton Live pack called 16-Bit, and you're listening to it right now. It's a collection of Ableton Live instrument racks made from samples of the Sega Genesis YM2612FM synth sound chip. So using a special MIDI interface called Gen MDM, I loaded sounds from some of my favorite games and sampled them and made instruments out of them that you can use in Ableton Live. It's a really cool way to get a very nostalgic sound from one of the coolest sound chips of the 16-bit era and the chiptune era in general, in my opinion. The 16-bit Ableton Live pack is available to members of the Music Production Club during September 2020. So if you join the club during September 2020, you will get 16-bit Ableton Live pack and have these sounds for your music. And you'll continue to get downloads and resources and live classes online every single month. Check it out at brianfunk.com/MPC. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have Elina Segall. Elina is a musician, a producer from Sweden who has moved to LA, and I think you're actually back in Sweden now, correct?
Yes.
Because we've had a crazy last few months that has just changed everything. But
completely.
But I'm excited to talk about you because you've got an interesting story, and I think it's also got that kind of like romantic fantasy, like I'm leaving home to start my music career, you know? So there's that like following the dream thing that I think takes like a lot of guts to do. And I'm interested to hear about how that's all going for you. So thanks a lot for
thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Thanks for taking the time to talk. So you, maybe I can ask you to just do like the brief, how you got into where you are, what your background in music is and
for sure.
that kind of thing.
So my background in music is like basically no background. I mean, I've started building my background now as of recently, but before that, I didn't really have any musical background at all. Like I've always had an interest for music, but like I've never had any traditional schooling in it or like education in that sense. So for me, it was more like I loved to sing for a really long time, like growing up. And I grew up on a Swedish island, like far out in the woods. So on that island, I grew up on a horse ranch. And so I was usually just like riding around. And the only time that I was like singing was like when I was trying to like make sure that animals, like wild animals, knew that I was coming through with my horse because horses get really afraid. So I was just singing really loud to make sure that wild animals like didn't come out and just like scare the horse.
What
and
kind
I
of
know
wild
like
animals,
neighbors.
if I may interrupt,
We have. Do you call it like elks or
Oh, okay.
So we have elks, deer, bear, but that's more up north in Sweden. We have wolves and foxes and stuff like that.
So it's not a joke. It's not like little birds or squirrels or something.
No, it's pretty, they're definitely out there. Even if it's an island, they usually like swim across and stuff like that. So,
Wow.
but so that's how I started just singing wise. And after that, I sort of went into, I wanted to do the whole university thing. And I was just like, well, music wasn't really a thing that I thought was going to happen in terms of a professional career.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to university. I studied branding and advertising and marketing and started working. I got an internship in London pretty quickly and then started working with branding as a brand specialist for Red Bull. So that's what I was doing after high school and stuff like that. And so music was always there. Like during weekends, I always started like I was singing and I was doing all these things. And then eventually I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to put a cover up on Instagram just for fun. And also somewhat, get away from my own head, just get out of my own head of like not being able to share music and my voice with other people. So I posted a cover just simply recorded with my iPhone. I was sitting in my kitchen here in Stockholm. And I posted that cover and I was so scared. Like, I was so like, oh my God, what is going to happen? Are people going to hate on me? So I didn't look at my phone for like 2 days. I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to know. But after that, once I looked at my phone, I was like, okay, people actually seem to like this. So I just created this concept called Sunday Sessions. And Sunday Sessions is a new cover every single Sunday. And that has been going on for about 3 years now. I've done over 100 sessions, and yeah, just kept it going for a really long time. And Sunday Sessions and the covers also introduced me to Warner Music. So Warner Music had this talent competition called Warner Music Talent. And I was just a part of it because I was like, if I can have 1 or 2 more followers, like I'm going to be stoked about that. So I was just a part of that, just, for fun. But I ended up winning it, to my big surprise.
That's awesome.
So I won that competition and I won a record deal because that was what you were going to win. So I thought like, okay, this is the dream. I got a record deal and, now the journey begins. But that wasn't really the case because I started reviewing the contract, and I've been reading a lot of contracts like during my time at Red Bull and stuff. So I was just like, okay, I do need some legal advice when it comes to this, because I was like, there are some things I feel not certain about. So I was going back and forth with my lawyer for several months about this contract. And then eventually I was like, yeah, it's not for me. So I turned that record deal down and felt like, you know what, I want to find myself as an artist and start producing my own music. So I decided to like, okay, where should I go to do this? And at that point in time, most of my followers were in the US. So I was like, okay, let's build my network there. So I packed my bags and moved to LA. And in LA, I met just a lot of people and started learning how to produce. So yeah, it's a bit of a story. It's taking some twists and turns, but
yeah. That's pretty fun. When did you move to LA?
So I moved to LA last year in August.
Okay, so like a year ago, just over. Yeah. Okay, nice. So the Warner Talent thing, just to get the idea right, is this sort of almost like an American Idol, or maybe Britain's Got Talent, or one of those types of like things where there's like judges, they watch you sing and then they...
Yes, so it's definitely smaller than that. It was more like a national, like Sweden, only 10 million people, so we're not a huge country. So Warner Music Sweden hosted that competition on social media, so it was more like a social media talent competition, but it was still judges and people from the industry and from the label that were making the decisions.
Right. So this is like, I guess like a new, to me it's new anyway, way of like talent being found, where there's these like competitions and they sing and usually it's, I'm assuming probably covers, right?
Yeah.
And then like at the end, somebody's going to get a record deal and we're going to turn them into a star kind of thing. What was it about it that you didn't like? Because, you signed up for the contest. This in theory sounds like the dream come true, right? You did exactly what you would have imagined in your wildest dreams. You won the contest.
Yeah.
What was it about that contract that you didn't like, that wasn't for you?
I think I wanted way more freedom than what that contract was offering. So creative freedom in the sense of being able to choose the songs that you want to perform and to choose the songs that you want to release. So I think it came down to a part of my own like feeling like, what do I actually want to do with the music? And in the contract, it was very firm on how things were going to be done. And usually when it comes to talent shows, this is this is the way that it is. It's kind of the contract that you get already from the start. So you also don't really have a lot of leverage, no matter how good you do in the competition and how much or how little attraction you get. You don't really have a say to the contract or about the contract. So for me, it was like I didn't have enough leverage. So the contract in itself wasn't really going to be able to move in the direction that I wanted. So it was very much about, as always, royalties, not feeling like they're meeting what I wanted. Also just my creative freedom in terms of having the final say of the video or artwork, or the songs, the music that, is the core of everything. So I just wouldn't have the freedom of displaying myself as an artist in the way that I wanted to. So I felt that it was too much that's going to be in the hand of others. And I just felt like that is not really the way that I wanted to go. Also because I was very new at that time and I was still figuring out where I wanted things to go.
Right.
So yeah, and also traditional contracts, we're in this new time where a lot of artists are trying to get out of their contracts. So for me, it was also hard to, convince myself why I should enter one when everyone else is trying to get out of them. So for me, it was just like, okay, I've seen this side of it, and now that side did not fit me. But it's not that I would never sign with a label or anything like that, but I think it would depend on what kind of contract it would be, and feeling that, it would serve me as an artist in the best possible way, where I also have a say in things.
Right. So I guess you realize that they might take you, Elina,
Yes.
call you whatever they want, present you however they want. You may find yourself given like an image, I guess, that was out of your control. I imagine like your experience with Red Bull and marketing kind of had you prepared as to like what this might actually mean and what they could potentially do with you.
Yeah, I think definitely like the marketing and branding background for me has helped me a lot. Also because I come into discussions no matter who I'm collaborating with a pretty good sense of what I want to achieve and how I want the planning to be. Like, what is it that I want to achieve, and what tools do I have to achieve that? So I think my background within marketing has helped me a lot, and I definitely view the business as a business and seeing that, okay, to them, I am a product. To me, I'm an artist. I have my music, I have my voice, but to them, I am a product that they have to market in some way. So how are they going to do that? Do I have a say in it? Do I have some sort of influence of how things are going to go? And I would, of course, have like a say to a certain limit, but I mean, to me, it's important to have a final say, no matter what it is. So,
yeah, I guess I could imagine they're really like holding it out there for you. Like, here's your ticket, here's your path. You can become a star, but it might not be on your own terms, and you might find yourself.
Yeah, and it might also not result in me being a star, because today a record deal doesn't mean that you're going to become a star. So I know one of my friends told me he talked about the spaghetti effect, that what record labels are doing a lot of times is that they sign a lot of artists and they have them produce songs, and then they throw these songs onto the wall and they see what sticks.
Okay.
So, and I didn't want to be a spaghetti. So I just felt that, you know what, I'm gonna take the long road and I'm gonna do this by myself and, try to make the most out of it.
I think that's really cool and brave. I guess it's brave either way, really. Whether you sign it or not.
Absolutely.
It's a huge
decision.
decision.
It comes both of them comes with different challenges for sure.
But I could understand the idea of like, well, if I do this for a while and I get known, then maybe I can then have some say, which has been sort of something that you've seen in artists in the past where they, maybe their earlier stuff is a little more to the book. And then once they get established, they can do their crazy concepts and,
Exactly. But then it's also like, how long are you going to be signed for?
yeah.
So yeah, it could be a great way to get known, but also these contracts can extend for a really long time.
Sure.
That could mean like the most important years of your career.
Right.
So for me, it was also like if it would have been a short contract, I think I would have viewed it differently, maybe. But this is when the work goes in. Like these are the dog years of when you're gonna have to do the work, and so I really want to make sure that I'm doing the most out of it. And yeah, to me, that wasn't a match.
I think, I'm no insider on the industry or anything, but I do think that over the years, there's been more of like a one-hit wonder type of thing happening where artists are a little more expendable.
Yeah.
And the people that get big and huge seem to be, to me at least, fewer and further between. I think because the record company has a lot more say and a lot more opportunity for profit in a new artist compared to
Absolutely.
say
And I feel like a lot of times now it's more about creating that one single or that one hit that will be streamed a lot. And there is not a big focus on, albums in the sense that it used to be. So, and that has its pros and cons, I guess. And it's all about like what artists and producers, like what their workflow looks like and what they're comfortable with producing. Like some people are just like frustrated with the album sense of viewing things because they're like, okay, I have this album, it's been done for years now and it's not released. And other people are more like, okay, I have this great music, I have this one single, I want to release it now because it reflects me right now. So I think there are definitely pros and cons with the way that the industry is moving. But I do, in the end, believe that you should have a say in when things are done and how they are done, even if you're with a label.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like it or not, this is the environment that we live in and the situation and the climate of the industry, I guess. So
Yeah.
it's, whether you have a positive or negative relationship with that really doesn't matter because it's the reality of what it is.
Absolutely. But I think it comes from I think it also has to start somewhere. Like we are the people that are in the industry also has to be like we are the ones creating the environment. We are the ones that are creating the industry. So I think if people start looking at it in different ways, and especially now, just like that people are more aware of contracts and the industry and the business behind it, because we've seen so many cases of people falling short. So I think we also have to realize that we are a big part of like what we choose to talk about and what demands we choose to have on labels and other business partners too, for that matter. So
that's a great point. They couldn't do it if they didn't have willing participants.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's like a dream of so many people to be in whatever field it is, I guess. But like say music, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll sign this contract and be this person, or I'll do this work that maybe, isn't what you want. And it's something I've like kind of learned. Oh, it's taken me a long time, really, but there's a lot of work that I wouldn't want to do, and it would kind of suck the fun out of this thing. That it's an interesting field because it is, as you said, it's a business. Like there's no denying that.
No, and you have to be a creative and a producer in so many ways, like so many ways. So just besides the music that is the core of everything, I'm producing all the video content, I'm doing all my own PR, I'm doing all my own shoots, like I'm doing all of these things. So yeah, it definitely comes with a lot of work and you have to be ready to do that. But you have all the tools. So it comes down to how do you use them, and who can use them the best. So
And as you said, like you are going to have to do all of these different aspects. It can be pretty easy to find yourself taking this thing that was your passion, that was your form of expression and way of like handling life, and kind of sucking all of that out of it if you're not careful. And now it's just your
Absolutely.
job, just as if you were doing any other mundane type of work that you might not enjoy.
Yeah.
So you gotta be
No, and
careful.
that is absolutely true. And I feel like when you feel like things are getting overwhelmed, sometimes it's better to take help from other people because there are other people that can be there to help you with things. And maybe it's worth, paying someone $50 to edit videos or to edit a podcast for you. Like they are like sometimes it's worth bringing in help too. So far, I have been I haven't personally done that, but I do feel like if things will keep growing in the way that they have been doing up to this point, I will absolutely bring in people that I feel like I want to work with, and that can also bring something to the table of
Yeah.
creative ideas and a different mindset. So
Yeah. And, even to loop back to your point before about we create the industry, you know, we as artists, as musicians, and whatever we're doing, even me, if I'm looking at as the podcast host, like there are people that need work. So if we want to continue to allow like jobs to happen, it might be worth sending your mix out to a master engineer
exactly.
to get a nice job on it, of course, but just to support the industry.
For me, I think it's been a journey of learning what I want and not leaving it in hands of others first. So for me, it's really been a journey, like just moving to LA and learning how to produce and all of these things. Like it's important for me to know, how do I want the mix to sound? How do I want the masters to sound? And for me to really be able to do that and make that judgment, I feel like I also need to know how it's done. How do I want to tweak things? What do I want to bring out? What do I want to take away? And I feel like I'm like that with most things. So even when it comes to photo editing or video editing and anything like that, like I love to have the knowledge of that I've done it myself. So I feel like I have a different way of viewing it when I also know what goes into it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And that also gives you the vocabulary to communicate to someone in the future what
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, I hope I want to be someone that's fun and easy to work with because we speak the same language and we have the same kind of understanding of how things are done and what's easy and what's more difficult. To have that understanding between two collaborators, I think it's super important.
Yeah. So you do have an interest in photography and video editing. And I think your Sunday session series allows you to kind of scratch both of the itches of the music
Yeah.
and that. But something I was kind of thinking about that I think is probably really helpful too is just the consistency of it. That you're
It
showing
hasn't
up
been
at.
easy. I'm going to tell you that.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, nothing is really, right?
Nothing is, no.
But
But it's been a long time. And it's been, I think when you see it like it is now, it's like, oh, she was sitting in front of a camera and just singing a song. But that's not really how it goes. Like I have to pick a song that I think suits my voice. I have to learn the lyrics because people like when I look straight into the camera and not just like reading off a screen. So I have to learn the lyrics and I have to like get the sound that I want and I have to practice the song, and then I'm gonna have to like sit down and record everything and re-record it until I get that take that I'm like, okay, this is gonna work. And then go in, edit everything, make sure it looks good. And then go into the whole social media marketing part of making sure that it's up on every platform. It has the right format for IGTV and different format for YouTube, and get the biggest possible IG post. And then a lot of things goes into it. And I've also made it like my core of always replying to DMs. So no matter who's writing to me, I'm always going to answer. So it definitely takes time. But it also gives so much back that I wouldn't I wouldn't have done anything differently.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure by now you've got a bit of a system and a flow that
Yeah.
helps, you kind of know what you need to do. But yeah, you mentioned it, like, it's not just those 3 minutes of the recording and then you just,
No, and it's really easy for people to look at my
yeah,
page and be like, "Oh, she sings covers. That's nice." And like,
yeah.
it's 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, and she's singing a song. And but it's a lot of hard work that's behind it, for sure. So
I think learning covers is also just a great way to develop your own style too, because you really learn a lot about the structure of the songs and the theory behind it. I mean, anytime I'm learning a song, there's always like a little surprise, and they're like, "Oh wow, look at what they
yeah,
did right there. That like minor chord doesn't belong, but it sounds really nice."
it's really like
Yeah.
that. And I feel like just singing technique wise as well,
Hmm.
it's been very good. Because I have to challenge myself in different ways that I probably wouldn't have unless I did that specific song. And sometimes I can be like, oh, this was actually a really difficult part. And maybe it's a part that I didn't think was going to be difficult to begin with. So, absolutely, I think doing covers made me learn music in a different way and listen to music in a different way. So,
Yeah, I mean, I came probably from a similar background in a way, in that I didn't have the formal music education. I wasn't in like band in school or anything, but I just started on guitar and then just started learning songs I liked. And
yeah,
that's how I learned guitar, like learning Nirvana records and
that's
stuff like
amazing.
that I was listening to. And things creep in, and even just recently I was playing some music with a couple of my friends, and we were just sort of like trying to jam out an idea and figure it out. And I've noticed, like, in the way we talk about things, it sort of like brings out a little bit of like what we've learned by learning covers. I made a remark like, this song, Lou Reed sings this song, is what I said. Like that's the delivery, that's like the
Yeah.
attitude. It's like partially spoken word, kind of just
But I
blabbering.
love that. I feel like it's sometimes I can feel that now when I'm producing my own tracks too, that I'm like, where does this idea come from?
Mm,
And then I'm like, oh, okay. Like I can
yeah.
sort of like trace it back to things that you pick up without even noticing. And then it comes back when you least expect it. And you're like, oh, but this is actually how I like it
Hmm.
because I've done it like this way, or like I know my voice works in this specific set, or so I've definitely learned a lot, and I can like highly recommend people just working on covers at home because I feel like it's easy to be stuck in that of like producing your own beats and which is great and I love it. But it's also good to take a step back and play songs and learn songs and that you like and that you look up to. Because you'll definitely find things that you didn't think of before, and elements that you haven't implemented in your stuff.
Hmm.
And just breaking a song down is so helpful.
Yeah, and I think when you are channeling those musicians and songwriters, you never quite nail it anyway. You always have,
No, of
you
course
get in
not.
the way. Your personality gets in the way, which is funny. We had a funny experience the other night playing. So I'm playing guitar, I got a friend playing bass, another guy playing drums. And we played in a different band a few years back where the drummer was the singer and we were playing his songs.
Right.
And the other night we kind of stumbled across one of those old songs, but now I'm playing guitar and the drummer, who is the singer and the guitarist, is on the drums. And we're like covering his song, and like
Oh my
here I
God.
am. I'm trying to like channel him and I'm imitating my memory of how the song went. And it was just a really cool experience because it definitely didn't come out like he would do it,
No.
but
But
it's
but that's the
sprinkled in
amazing part
there.
of it. Yeah. Because the song evolves with that too. I feel like I can cover a song and it has a meaning to me at that point when I choose it. And then at the end of it, I'm like, wow, I've
Mm.
definitely dug deep into the lyrics and into the whole instrumental in a way that I probably wouldn't do if I was only listening to it and not covering it. So yeah, I like that part about covers. But I was fascinated that the cover community is so huge
Hmm.
on YouTube and stuff like that. When I started out, I was like, wow, do people really want to hear the same song in so many different versions? But I mean,
Well,
it's great.
it's almost not the same song in a way because, as you said, you're bringing your own thing to it, your own interpretations, your own emphasis on different parts. And I think that's one of the cool things about music is it's different, even though it's a recording, like it's different depending
Yeah,
on who you are at the time you hear it. I mean, I've heard music that I didn't really care for when I heard it the first time. And it was just the mood wasn't right, you know, like this was maybe like a sad song at a party. I don't feel like hearing it, but like on the drive home from the party, it was perfect, you know?
exactly.
So
No, I can definitely relate to that.
there's something to be said about like just what the song is for and when it's for and who it's for. And I mean, there's a lot of great covers out there that are more like they have more of the essence of the song than the original. You know, like
Absolutely. And I think it's also sometimes covering older songs. And I mean, sometimes it's really nice because you can introduce music that you love to other people.
mhm,
So I know a lot of people that are following me have been like, wow, I never heard this song before. This is
mhm,
so great. And, it's also a way for people to find music and, find music that I listened to when I was growing up, so it's a beautiful way to explore music as well.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And you're 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 taking new parts of the song on, and it is definitely a great learning experience. And I teach a Berkeley online course called Sampling in Ableton Live, or
Okay.
Advanced Techniques in Ableton Live Sampling. And one
Are
of
you
the
more of an Ableton person?
oh yeah, that's my
That's your
tool.
go-to?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I got certified to teach it, and I've just
Yeah, I learned Ableton just to be able to make my decision if I
Mhm.
wanted to use it or not.
Yeah.
But I actually like for me, Logic is my babe.
Right. Well, I came
Yeah.
from Logic. So
Okay.
I started on Pro Tools when I first got a computer. I mean, I was recording on 4-track
Mm.
cassettes, you know, for
Amazing.
yeah, like I'm really glad I have that like old world analog
Yeah,
background
I'm
just
jealous.
to understand it. You know what? It's not a bad idea if you get an old piece of gear like that just to experience even the digital like 4 tracks they have, like Tascam makes them that pretty cheap, just to get that sense of the limitation and
Yeah, I like the thought of that. I should definitely do that.
yeah, I mean you could, I guess, impose that on yourself inside Logic and just say I'm only allowed 4 tracks. But there is something about like the actual you know,
Actual limitation.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just makes you think differently. And um
But
uh
so what made you go from Logic to Ableton?
well, I loved Logic. I still think Logic is amazing, and you know they all are. You can make incredible music on everything on your iPhone. You
Yeah.
know, people have made awesome music. But the thing was, Logic was great. I really was starting to feel home at it because I said I started on Pro Tools just because I think it was like 2005. I got a
Mm.
laptop and you get Pro Tools. Like, what else is? I didn't even know there was other stuff at that point. Uh, so I kind of wandered around a few different DAWs, but I settled in on Logic. I thought it was just nice, worked well. I liked the workflow, the look of it, the sound of the instruments and stuff. But when I was going on YouTube to learn Logic, I just kept coming across all these Ableton Live tutorials. Like Ableton has
Oh.
a really intense community around it.
Yeah.
I think more than any other DAW, and that's I think a function too of just how the company is, and they're really into their branding and their marketing,
Mm.
and like you know
Absolutely.
they've realized that if they put stuff out for the community that isn't even Ableton centric, it's good for Ableton. You know, they're just building this world. And I think
Mm.
that's one of, and as far as I can tell, that's one of the secrets of marketing is not to always be promoting yourself because that gets kind of annoying after a while. But anyway, their stuff just kept showing up, and I decided just to try it out, and I was rewiring Ableton Live into Logic. So
Okay.
so basically you can use Live and it shows up like as an input in Logic,
All right.
which was cool. And I was doing that for a few months and I just sort of realized like I'm not doing anything in Logic anymore. I'm
Yeah.
doing everything in Live. And the thing about Live was that it allowed me to treat the studio more like an instrument. I felt like it was more of like a songwriting tool.
Okay.
Whereas like Logic Pro Tools to me was I'm a mixing engineer and this is replicating my studio. I felt like Live was more like this is a tool I can use for songwriting and arranging
Wow.
ideas.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because I feel like that's probably the way I view Logic. For me, it makes more sense because I feel like it's very visual. It makes, but then again, I also come from like before I even started producing music, I came from video editing and photo editing. So Adobe and having all of that, it's sort of like
yeah.
interface wise, it just looks the same, and it just like shortcuts and short commands and stuff like that. It just it definitely just made more sense to me.
Yeah, and that's just it, it's whatever makes sense to you. I mean, as much as I love what I use and how I do it, that's not the one for everyone.
Yeah, but I think I have like this kind of conversation with everyone that I meet about what DAW you're actually using and why you're using it. And I feel like to me, it's very fascinating to hear, especially like being kind of a rookie. But I had to learn both because I was like hearing so many different things. I was like, okay, I really have to learn both of them to make sure that my decision, because the one I'm going to go with, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to be like, okay, this is my go-to thing. But yeah, even after trying it out, I was like, Logic is still where I'm going to go.
I think a lot of people go through that phase, and I think it also comes back every once in a while too, where you are trying to figure out what tool am I going to use, what am I going to be in, and you will work differently. If I'm in Logic, which I don't use a lot these days, but I know like I just think differently. I operate in a different way than I do when I'm in Live.
Yeah.
And there's not a right answer, and if you're getting caught up in like arguments and forums, it doesn't matter.
I tried to stay away from that. I like the in real life conversation.
Yeah.
When it comes to this,
Most
I tried to stay
things, I
out
think,
from about like just getting into comments and all of those things. I'm like, yeah, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no right answer. I mean, I know people that make their recordings on like really simple gear, outdated gear even, like, and not even like vintage in a cool way, like just old technologies.
Just old.
I have a friend that does all his music on a Boss 8-track. It's like the separate self-contained unit, and it uses zip discs, which...
But I kind of like that.
Well, when that was around the time I was still learning a lot about what I was going to be doing with the computer. And I always felt like, this old piece of garbage you use, you should get into. And like, I'd be sitting around trying to figure out my program, whatever I was trying to learn at that time. And I could turn around. And he's like, all right, I got 4 new songs recorded.
But I think that's such an important thing too, is like, okay, what tools are actually going to be like make you create?
Yes.
So what tools are making it easy to create? Because you can learn every single software, but unless you feel like, okay, you can open up your laptop and start writing a song directly, it's not going to be of any help. So like, I think it really comes down to like, do it any way you want, but make it easy for yourself, because being creative, it's hard in itself. So I think just making sure that you have tools that work with you and not against you is key.
Yeah, that was the takeaway for me. I'm like, okay, great. I'm using wonderful new technology, but I didn't get any songs recorded yet. I'm still figuring it out, and you just banged out 4. So it is whatever works for you is the best thing to use. So that's my take on the whole argument there. So
amazing.
You went to LA to do some music production courses, right? And I guess then it's in Logic.
Yes. So before I went to LA, I didn't really have any production knowledge at all. But then I signed up for this producer course. It was like a program for 4 months. And that was going to be Logic focused. And then after that, I was going to do Ableton to learn that as well. So it came down to that I moved to LA. And I was really lucky because, I mean, from everything that I've heard, LA is a really difficult city and it's very tough. So I was very lucky in that sense to, like, the first day I was there, I met a lot of great people and a lot of great producers that just sort of like took me under their wings and was like, okay, let's do this. Let's make it happen. So for me, it was more about, like, my purpose of going there was like, okay, day and night, I'm going to learn how to produce. I'm going to, try to make sure that I extract as much knowledge from these people as I possibly can. And yeah, that's what I did.
Well, how did you meet people that fast? Because I think that's something a lot of people, even in cities like LA and New York and wherever, the music scenes are supposed to be, it's still like, well, how do I meet people? Like, it's not like people run out their door and be like, hey, So
it's really not. Like, people don't show up at your doorstep and be like, hey, let's be friends. Like, you have to be out there. And I mean, it's definitely a scary part of it. And I feel like for me, it's all about being open, being friendly. I mean, it's really about showing that you are interested in people and what they're doing. Like, as you said, just talking about yourself, it gets to the point where you're like, oh, and in LA, there's way too many people talking about themselves. So I think just the matter of fact of asking people, like, what they're doing, what they are working on, what they feel like they want to do for the coming months. Like, do they have any, like, exciting projects? Like, I think it's just a key thing of taking the focus away from yourself, and being able to, to have a conversation about interesting things and not about, like, trying to get something out of every person that you see, like, or that you meet. For me, it's more like, I want knowledge. Like, I want to learn. Like, I want to know why you, for example, why you lean towards Ableton. Like, that's valuable information for me. So I think that was really my approach. But then again, I love to party too. So I think most of the times I met a lot of people just, finding the right bars and clubs and dinner spots where a lot of people go. And then it's like, it's natural to meet people like that. But I think the ones that opened doors for me were really people that I met at the program. So my teacher and current mentor, Eddie Gray, shout out to him because he's absolutely amazing. He really learned me a lot and made sure that I met people within the industry. So yeah, I think it's really about, being open to opportunities, saying yes. If someone is like, hey, do you want to come by? Or do you want to grab a coffee? Like, say yes. Then sometimes it will be like a boring coffee and you won't get that hour back, but that's fine. But another time it will be great and you'll have a friend for life. So I really think it's like just being open to opportunities and the chance to meet people. So if that makes any sense. I think LA in itself also, a lot of Swedes are in LA. So I think I also had a bit of a head start there because I have friends that are producers and songwriters and they live in LA. So I think it was coming from both ends of, building on those friendships and also making new ones.
Right. Yeah. And I think you said a couple things that make a lot of sense. Like, you have to go where the action is. You got to go to where the music is and where the people are and just kind of get involved. I tell people a lot of times, do open mic nights, go out and just listen to music and then try to talk to the people as much as you can.
Yeah, I know. Like, when I've been in New York and I've gone to events, and then just after the show, I just start talking to someone that just performed and just like asking them and getting their socials and stuff like that. And a lot of my friendships start just from those kind of events where it's not. It also social media, like it's really just like following someone that you like, and don't be afraid to hit them up and ask like, hey, do you want to grab a coffee, or do you want to like go watch this show tonight? Like it doesn't have to be harder than that. Like the worst thing that can happen is that you get a no, and then okay, move on with life. But I think it's really, you have to work for it, and you have to make sure that, I made sure that I was going out on weekdays, because that's when most of the musicians and artists are out and producers are out. So I was feeling like I didn't go out a lot during weekend. I was like mostly producing music at that point. But a lot of people in LA, they're out on, a regular Tuesday or a Thursday. And so go out.
Yeah. Well, I think you also say too, like, ask them about themselves. Everyone's favorite topic of conversation is themselves and what they're working
Always.
on. So, but there's so much to learn from that, and I think that's just a great way to see your interactions, like with people when you're doing this sort of, this is how I am on the podcast. Like, I'm very interested to learn, I find the ones I enjoy the most are often the ones when I look back on my two waveforms in my DAW, and it's like the person is talking, and once in a while you see like a little blip on my line just to say, but like,
Yeah.
just to hear their story is so important, because you really can learn from anybody. You really can, like, at any
Absolutely.
level.
Like everyone, it's a cliche, but everyone has a story. But that story it's worth listening to, because you are going to take something away from it, and you're going to bring that with you. And when you least expect it, you're going to like think of that person and be like, oh, well, didn't that person, have these influences? Or all of a sudden you're collaborating just because you remember that thing about that person's history or experiences, and and then it all comes together. So
Yeah, I think so. That's pretty cool. So how is production going for you? Is there anything you're working on right now?
yes, so I am working on an EP at the moment. So I don't have a release date for it just yet, but I am working on it. And I mean, like these times that we are in right now, they're definitely giving me time to work on it. So I kind of appreciate that, to be able to like really, deep dive into the writing and producing of things. And so I'm still picking up a few lessons here and there when it comes to like mixing and mastering and stuff like that I have with my team over in LA, because right now I'm in Stockholm. I got stuck here when I was visiting. So yeah, I've been in Stockholm since March, because I came home. I was gonna renew my visa and go back. But then I got stuck.
Yeah.
So, but I've been here and, producing from here and writing, and, I'm so grateful that I came from LA with so much knowledge that I now can like, actually sit down and get my ideas down into music.
Yeah, I think that it's probably cool maybe to sometimes changing the scenery, when you go to work on something is a nice way to give it like a fresh look. I mean, you did change your scenery to go to LA, but you're here in like sort of like a different chapter. So this is maybe like a way to chronicle that.
Yeah, and I think it's been a good way for me to like decompress too from everything that I experienced in LA. So it was it's been nice to be able to like see my family, of course, again and stuff like that, but also getting that time away from everything. LA is intense, but that's what I love about it too. But it's been nice to just like, okay, all this knowledge and all the experience, and sort of like be able to put that into songs.
Yeah, I get that feeling. I've been to LA a couple times, and I live about an hour outside of New York City.
Okay.
And one of my favorite parts about going to the city is always coming home and getting
Yeah.
away from the city. You go there because it's a city, but it's also nice to leave because it's the city.
Exactly. And I think it's that I've really experienced that like when it comes like this time, just because I realize more and more how important like water and nature is to me. Like I grew up on a farm out on an island, and I don't think I've realized how much that means to me to be around that kind of environment, to, gather my thoughts and emotions. So yeah, it's definitely something that I learned about myself.
Yeah, yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, being in nature, being outside, I'm right by the water too, and it's I every time I go to the beach, say it's like a reset button. It just
Definitely.
that air, I don't, I'm not a city boy, I guess, I'm not cut out for that. But it's nice to have the option.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very privileged in that sense, because I think that I'm sort of like 50-50. Like I love being in the city. I love the pulse. I love being in it. But I also love being outside of it, and just like, okay, that is the city. That is everything that
Yeah.
matters inside the city. But out here, it doesn't really matter. And so I love perspective of things, and just being out in nature and being close to water, it gives me that. So it's been a perfect environment to just be able to really work on my own artist project.
Are you finding that you're drawing from some of the influences of the covers you've been doing from the Sunday sessions? Is there anything like you're sort of focusing on, a genre or a style?
I think for me, it's been doing the covers. It's also been, as you said before, you can draw certain influences and stuff like that. But I think it's also sometimes when you've done so many that it could also confuse you a bit of like, where do I want to go? Okay, what do other people think I sound best singing? Instead of like, what do I feel that I sing the best? So I think it's definitely been a challenge in that sense. But the more I learn about production, and the more I learn about the sounds that I like and the specific kinds of mixes I like, I think it's also easier for me to, focus on certain things. But I can see myself, and I can feel that my tracks as of now are turning more into some sort of like soul pop. So it's definitely got, some soul in there, but with like arrangements of pop, and So I think I'm excited to see the outcome, the final things, because I feel like sometimes I can find myself, writing a ballad, and then the other end I'm like writing super R&B stuff, and so I think I'm finding my middle ground, of being more in that, more of a soul pop-ish. There's so many different genres right now that
Yeah.
it's like,
I know. I can't keep up.
no, me neither. But yeah, so we'll see. But that's somewhat of what I aim to create.
Yeah, I think with all the genres, in a way, it's almost like melted genre away, where so much stuff is just like this convergence of all these different styles.
Yeah.
I was curious about that from your perspective, because your covers do range from quite a large set of styles. And I've had this conversation, I think, a couple times recently with people where, when I first started, it was just like alternative rock, from the 90s. Like I never even thought about what I was going to play, because that's just what I was. But as I've learned new styles and gotten into, especially once I started getting into the computer and learning about like synthesis and things
Yeah.
that I'd never had any experience with at all. Like now I almost can't decide what kind of music to make when I go to make music. And it really
But
helps
isn't that
me.
kind of nice too? Because it just turns
Yes,
it to
sure.
whatever is in your head, and without having that fixed idea of what's trending, or what's, happening right now, what everyone else is doing. It's like there are so many different genres that it also gives you the freedom of being in between genres, and
Yeah.
creating your own things. So
It is. And like 1 minute I feel like just picking up an acoustic guitar and just making a real bare bones singer-songwriter type of thing. And then the next minute I'm playing with drum machines and synthesizers and making all these weird noises that are like on the other universe. It is a great problem to have. No doubt
it
about
is.
it.
It really is. And I think we can see that also when it comes to the major like artists as well. Like they've chosen to explore different sides of themselves. Like maybe they start out in one part and then they switch. And I feel like I love that thing because it's just like, okay, what's going to happen next? Like it's not predictable. And I kind of love that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's the exciting thing about a lot of music today is you just it's like anything can happen really.
Yeah.
How far along are you in the process, do you feel? Are you getting close or is it in a certain stage?
I mean, I'm definitely I would say I'm probably like halfway. Cause I'm also with everything, I'm very much a perfectionist and it's not always to my advantage. Like I love to make sure that things are looking as good and, that they're as good as they can be. But I also know that it comes to a point where you just have to let it go. So I think for me, it's more about the process, deciding that it's done. Because,
Yeah.
a lot of tracks are done, but I'm feeling like, yeah, I just have to decide that they're, here, I can't do anything more. You should not do anything more. You shouldn't just overdo it. But I think it's just hard letting things go because you're like, oh, maybe I can just fix that, or maybe the snare needs to hit a bit harder, or like, it's yeah, it's really like going back and forth in that sense. But I'm enjoying the process, and I feel like it's better, especially because I'm new in production. I feel like I'm constantly learning new things that I want to like try out and make sure that because if you release, at least for me, like when I release the first project, I want to make sure that it reflects me because, like you never get a second first impression. So, yeah, I just want to make sure that it's right, but I'm probably like halfway.
Nice. Yeah, that's the problem. You can always work on this stuff forever. There's no like answer. It's not like you hit a finish line
No.
like if you were running a race and you can just keep tweaking things. And then once you tweak your snare and you make it hit harder, you realize, oh, but now the bass is a little
Exactly.
weak. Like it changes the relationship of all the other sounds. But something that I really appreciated was a conversation that I had with Derek Sivers, the guy that did CD Baby, and now he's a writer and everything. But his like idea of releasing stuff,
Yeah.
is more like letting it go, instead of like putting it out there. And here's my thing: it's more like, all right,
Exactly. And
now it's all
yeah.
like letting your, I don't know, like the bird fly out of the nest or something. And
Exactly. It's like you want to nurture it so much. You want it to be like, have everything. But like, I mean, I know my sister told me just a few days ago, like there is nothing that will ever be perfect. So you might as well just let that concept go because nothing is ever going to be perfect. Like your music is not going to be perfect. The world is not going to be perfect.
yeah.
Like nothing is ever going to be perfect. So you might as well just, exactly as you said, let it go.
Yeah, and that's usually where a lot of the magic and beauty lies in things anyway. A lot of my favorite recordings like stand out to me because of their imperfections and because of the things that maybe shouldn't have happened but did. And it's like I like to think of it sometimes too as like you're recording, you're capturing a moment, and that moment is kind of just whatever it is.
Exactly. And I feel like I'm trying to preserve that in the sense of like when I'm recording a song, like even if it's like just the first take, I always save that one. And then like once I've done my takes and trying to perfect it as much as I can, I go back to that first take and I'm like, okay, well, what parts of this one should I actually keep that are like, that you can feel what it is I'm singing about or what the song is actually like what story the song is actually telling.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about those early takes before they've been edited.
Yep.
Because sometimes you can edit out and rearrange the original intent completely out of the song.
Exactly. So, yeah, no, I think it's a good thing to just keep that one, the first one, even if you're not happy with it and you're like, oh, I do want to change this, I do want to change that. It's like, well, just keep it and you can always, delete it later, but it usually has a lot of stuff in it. Like, even if it's just like, the way that you breathe, like could be that simple thing of just like, oh, but I did, breathe a certain way in that section that just made you feel something. So yeah.
Yeah, I find that's like a tough thing to recognize in yourself too, where you're, I don't know if imperfections is the word, but where like those little things that happen, like maybe it's the breath you took, is that cool or is that annoying? Because like,
Yeah. But
traditionally,
that's when I think you need
yeah,
someone that you trust, someone that you can send stuff to, and you trust their taste and you trust them to be honest, because I feel like that's the most important thing. Like you need people around you not to listen to your music and be like, "Oh, that's great, that's great, that's great." It's like, well, I want to hear what you think. I want to hear what part you liked. I want to hear what part that you were like, "Oh, I would probably want something different here." So I do have like a couple of people that I send the tracks to and be like, "Okay, let's hear it. What do you think about it?" And that I can ask and be like, "Is this breath completely cheesy, or does it actually add something?" You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
Yeah, something like that funny happened to me just the other day. Again, I sent out like some like rough demos of songs we've been working on, and I was at the end of like a singing part. Just in my recording, I just kind of went like, I was just fooling around, like being lazy on the mic,
yeah,
and it wasn't the part, but my friend was like, "Oh, I love the way that happened. The way like your voice kind of falls apart." And
absolutely.
and it was like, I never considered that as part of it, but having like another ear to just be like, oh, that was that mistake or that thing you didn't mean to do was worth keeping. But
Absolutely. And I feel like that's also sometimes even before a song or like after a song that you recorded something, it could be like a conversation or just like a laugh or anything
yeah.
like that just makes it more
Hmm.
human. And I like that because you start feeling like, okay, I'm actually listening to this person. It's not just a very polished track. It's something that feels real. Like you're in the room and you're seeing this person record and it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and it's so easy to clean all that stuff right out of the mix, to take
Mm,
every inhale out of your vocal performance. But sometimes that just
exactly.
reminds you there's like a human being like living there doing their thing.
And feeling this heartbreak or
Yeah.
whatever it is that is like, okay, it adds something. It's like, of course, it shouldn't be like too much. It's important that it is like, at the right place at the right time. But yeah, I definitely think that some of those early things when you start having the idea about the song are really important to save.
Mm. Yeah, I like that idea. I don't know if I've ever thought of it that way of like, all right, that was the first take. Let's just keep that aside, you know?
Yeah.
Because I always do like those early takes and things when the spirit of it is still alive. Because you never get to hear your music for the first time.
No.
You hear it come together and grow and become something, and next thing you know, it's this finished thing. But you've never got to just hear what that feels like the first time.
Except for the first
Except
time.
for those
So,
early
and I feel like
takes.
that, yeah.
It's the closest you
And
get.
I think exactly. So I feel like that because there's going to be stuff that you don't like about it and that you're going to change later and stuff. But there is something about that first take because the idea is fresh in your head. And it's also the first time that you hear it recorded.
Mm,
So I think there's something about preserving the idea in itself when you have that first take.
mhm,
So yeah, might not work for everyone, but it works for
mm.
me.
That's a good idea. Just as a reference, even just to see if how things have changed, and that might be a lesson in
Exactly.
itself.
Yeah, for
When
sure.
you're writing all of this and recording, what is the process like? Are you writing the songs like first, or they all the things come together? Like maybe you start with like a beat, or do you have a set plan before you record? And to ask you that question is silly because for me it's different every time, but I wonder.
No, but like I actually got asked this question by a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about music. He's also a producer, and he was like, "So, like, how does it usually go for you?" And for me, it's like it definitely changed once I started producing music. Before, it was more like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring out my iPhone and I'm gonna record a melody or like a phrase that I like or something, and then sit down with like pen and paper and maybe just simple guitar and, doing the basics of that. But then once I learned how to produce, I kind of I realized that I like the process of being able to produce and record vocals at the same time. So sometimes I sit down and I start like with a basic beat and I put some vocals on it. And then I build the beat based on those vocals. And then I sort of like work my way through the song like that, like piece by piece, and putting together like, oh, well, I do feel like I need this kick here because like my vocal sounds this way. Or I start with like a more heavier beat and I'm like, okay, well, I want this vocal to sound here. And then I'm like, wait, these pieces doesn't really work. So then I just like move them around. And that's usually when I have that first take of vocals. Like, doesn't really sound good. It's probably, it's not great, but that's the one that I save because then obviously I track my vocals, like the final vocals later. But it's usually when I'm like, it's for me, it's more of a puzzle. Like, okay, I have this beat, I like it, I put some vocals on it, and I write it that way. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, that's a bridge. That's not really a verse for me or the way that I see this song. And then, I just move things around. So it's not very structured at all, but I feel like that's kind of the process that I've come to like a lot of seeing things grow and, take a natural way of developing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's some structure to that. And you've got your vocal, which is really, I imagine, in if you're doing like anything with pop in it, soul or whatever you want to describe it, like the vocal is the main idea. So to have that there and then build around that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I like it just because I can adjust the way that I want to, and I think one of the main things that I took away from one of my teachers in LA too was just learning how to write without words.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was really important to focus on. It may sound strange, but for me, it's been very important to make sure that, because I love lyrics and I love lyrics. I listen to lyrics a lot and I truly value them. So for me, it's like, it's so important to say the right things and say, phrase it the right way and stuff like that. But one of my teachers really taught me to sing without words, just let it be, sing, just make a noise, whatever. Or just like, I think I had one lesson in LA for like 3 hours or something. We had a conversation without using words. And it was like one of the most challenging things I've done because I was like really having to like push through my barriers of wanting to use words. So I feel like it's really been valuable for me. Making sure that I can, like, if I don't come up with that verse that first time, it's fine. Like, you can use language that doesn't mean anything, and then you can fill it out when you finally come up with it, So I think it's important to explore that space of things that you also looking towards yourself and being like, okay, what is limiting me in my process of writing? And for me, it was lyrics. So once I sort of like climbed that mountain of, letting myself be free and writing, not having to tell that story exactly the way that I wanted to tell it straight away, that's fine. And you'll have different takes and you'll have different versions, and that's okay too.
I love that style of writing because, yeah, I agree. Like, lyrics are definitely important and usually the thing most people will probably hear first when they listen. But I'd love to just gibberish, just blabber. Sometimes you say things too, and there's almost like a subconscious thing going on.
It's like, oh, did I want to say that? Okay, apparently I did. Okay, I'm going to go with it. So
yeah, but you learn where the consonants go, where the vowels go, the phrasing, the rhythms. A lot of times in the gibberish, you figure out like the timing of everything.
Yeah, because you can still deliver and create a certain feeling and emotion without using words. And I think that was really something that I really had to learn, that it doesn't always come down to what you say. It's how you say it.
Yeah. Well, lyrics are meant to be heard. They're not really meant to be read. That's something
Exactly.
you might do after you like a song and you want to find out
Yeah.
what they're saying, but they are meant to be heard. So, and sometimes lyrics really don't sound good when you just read them. You need the music
True.
and the phrasing and whatever repetition there might be. But
Yeah.
it is
And that breath
really
that we were
nice, I
talking
think,
about.
to all that. Yeah, exactly. The how you say it. But that exercise of just getting on the mic and just going, and
Yeah.
it's a little hard, especially at first, to just feel free. Um, I find it a lot easier when I'm alone, but
Absolutely.
certain people I think that I've worked with understand, and I know they like trust me enough. Like we believe
Yeah.
in each other as musicians, so this is what you do. You're saying a bunch of nonsense,
Yeah, and
but
I feel like I like that process, but for me, it's also important that it's dark. Like I can have another person in the room or several other people, but for me, it has to be dark, no lights, and
uh,
that's like when I feel comfortable. So
yeah, don't look at me.
yeah, you
Yeah, it
can
makes
listen, but
sense.
don't look at me.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that too. But things come out that way, and if you think about like when you're playing instruments too, a lot of times you're trying to figure out a melody. You're kind of doing the musical equivalent of gibberish. You're just kind of throwing notes out there, and every once in a while you stumble across something, and it's just
Exactly.
recognizing that is the tricky part.
Yeah. No, for sure, and I feel like it's recognizing things around you, and I feel like just after like starting to produce, it really opened my eyes to my surroundings in a different way.
Hmm.
Listening to sounds that you maybe wouldn't recognize before in the same way, and just like pick up your phone and record it, and then put it
Hmm.
in a song. And it for me, it's changed a lot the way that I just look at my everyday life. And I think that's like one of my favorite parts about the production part too. Um,
Yeah, there's music everywhere. You just have to
yeah, it
hear it.
really is.
And it becomes music as soon as you, I guess, like organize it
Mm.
or say it's music. This is just part of it.
Just define it as music, and it's music.
Yeah, and with sampling and putting sounds inside samplers and turning them into instruments, for me is always fun and surprising. And
Yeah.
as much as I learn how to do it and get used to the tools, there's still always that element of surprise, and that's one of my favorite parts of the whole process. Is just the like, oh, that
Yeah,
that
exactly.
exciting, like, oh, that was cool. Like, how did that work? And finding those moments.
Yeah. No, it's really something about that element of surprise, not knowing where this song is gonna go or how it's like. Yeah, it's definitely the part that I love about it, and I feel like it's also given me the chance to explore my voice in a different way, being able
Mm,
to sample it and twist and turn and, pitch and, all those things, just making sure that I can find different ways of using my voice, and it doesn't have to be one way. It can be so many ways.
mm. Yeah, that's cool. And the human voice too just has so much like action, like
Mm.
there's the vowels are changing, the volume is so dynamic, and the intensity, the tone. I mean,
Yeah,
there's just so
definitely,
much.
and I feel like it's been. I would love to hear how Swedish sounds to other people, just because people usually say it sounds like you're singing because it's a very like happy language.
Mm,
So it's also like just making sure that I also sing in Swedish sometimes and sample that just to like take out rather sounds rather than words,
mhm.
to like make sure that my music also reflects some of my culture, and making sure that I have those Swedish influences in there too.
Yeah, I think you should. I mean, that's who you are, and this is why you've not gone with that contract, right? So you can
Exactly.
do your thing and not be told what to do and figure out your way of getting that across.
Exactly.
Nice. So where do you like to send people primarily to check out your work?
I would say go to Instagram, and that's also
Okay.
probably the easiest way to reach me. So it's Elina Segall, very simple. And you can reach me there, but I'm also on YouTube, also Elina Segall. Website Elina Segall as well. So it's very simple like that. It's the same
Mm.
name all over. And yeah, but if anyone wants to reach out, usually it's easiest to find me on Instagram and just hit me up in the DMs.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. You got it nice and simple across all the platforms. That's marketing
Yeah,
right
you
there,
got to
right?
make it easy for people.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's cool stuff. I love the idea that you have of just the consistency of the Sunday sessions. If nothing else, you're just putting in the work at
Yeah.
a regular basis, but you're also getting all the other benefits, of course, and you're exploring different styles. I'm excited to hear what comes out of the EP though.
Yeah.
I think you can certainly express yourself a lot through covers, and the covers you select say a lot about
Mm.
who you are. I'm very interested to hear how you put that all together.
Yeah, thank you. I'm
So
excited
you have,
to let people hear it and, find find my own way within this industry and see where it goes and, be able to produce my own stuff, but also produce for other people and making sure that we as women are represented within the industry. I
Mhm.
think that's one of one of the things that I see as highly important. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm looking forward to being a part of that.
Well, I think that's good you have that attitude because this is like, I would say it's like a team sport,
No,
where
that's true.
the people you work with all matter, and any success with anyone you work with will only help you. Like that whole idea of the rising tides raise all
Hmm.
ships kind of thing. Because it can get very competitive, and music has always been like
Yeah,
that. And all the forms I've done it, there's always some people that are into the community and the group, and they always seem to move along faster than the people that are just about themselves and don't interact and
exactly.
kind
And
of
I just
like,
feel like it's also important for women and young girls to know that there is a place within the industry for everyone if you work hard
mm,
and if you dedicate yourself to what you want. And it's not like you can learn everything that a guy can learn. Like it's technical stuff. You just got to put in the hours. You just really got to put your head down and work. But young girls can do that just as young guys. So I feel like it's just important for women to see that there's place for several female producers and artists and rappers and writers. Like there, it doesn't have to be one. We don't have to be put, being up against one another. We can lift each other by doing that. So
yeah, it's so true. I mean, I grew up like not realizing that I could do music. Like when I learned that if I had a guitar, I could play the songs on the radio that I heard, it blew my mind. I didn't understand that was even possible for me for whatever reason. I just thought musicians and rock stars were, sent down from some higher level or struck by lightning on a mountaintop. Like, but that idea that this is accessible to anybody is so important, and I see that. So I teach high school English, and we have a music production club where we have
mm,
Ableton and pushes, and um, it's it's funny. Like a lot of kids just at the age of like high school, like early high school, they've already decided like they can't do that.
yeah.
That's not for them, and it's like, wait, wait, whoa, 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 hold on.
It's like
Like
why wouldn't you be able to do that? Like, of course you can.
it's we have this thing like if you haven't always been doing something, like you can't do
And I know
that.
I
But
had that mindset for a really long time. I was like, "Oh, I'm getting too old for
mhm,
this. I can't do this." Like they want females and girls to be super young. Like everyone has to be, 16 when they start doing stuff or start singing by when you're 3 years old. But like for me it's never too late. It really comes down to how you choose to do it. Like if you're dedicated enough, if you work hard enough, you are going to be able to do it. And you know, it, again, it's just about working hard and being dedicated, putting
yeah,
putting those hours and reps in, and making sure that you know more. For me, it's like I want to know things. I love, learning new things, and I want to make sure that when I'm in a session, we speak the same language and we're on an we're on the same level. And I feel like, especially being in LA, being a girl and being like, I don't have a manager. I'm doing everything by myself. You really have to have being able to speak the same language and making sure that people know that what you're doing to get that respect within a session. So I can only tell my fellow ladies to keep learning and to keep working.
Mm. That's the secret to everything, right? Just keep showing up, keep putting in the time, keep pushing yourself. Everything. What is that not true for?
Yeah, no,
So, and especially in music, like that's I always felt like I'm a good example of that, just because I didn't have that background. I didn't get that training in school. Then when I first picked up a guitar, like, yeah, there were a lot of kids that were miles ahead of me. But for whatever reason, I made that decision I'm just going to play my guitar every day.
yeah,
I loved it. So like it was easy. But what I didn't quite know at the time was, if you put in the time, like, the results will follow. And then there's just the enjoyment out of it too.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Making sure that you have fun with it, and making sure that because it's supposed to bring you joy.
Mhm. Well, there's plenty of smarter ways to try to make your way through the world, more secure paths than music.
Absolutely.
Well, nice. Elina, it was nice talking to you. And
It was so nice to talk to you.
we'll send people to Instagram.com/Elina Segall.
Amazing. I'll see you
And
guys
YouTube
there.
is definitely a
And
good
ladies.
spot too, because the longer videos are there.
Yes.
And your website and all that. I'm sure you'll keep us all informed and let us know when the EP's coming.
I will.
Or at least when you're starting to leak it or whatever, singles or something. But that'll be cool to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks so much.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
All right. And I hope everyone listening, I hope you have a great day. Take care.